Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Fall is my favorite season of all time. I'm not myself if it's not fall. I don't know anybody that enjoys fall or loves fall as much as me. Reading as a fall girly is like my absolute peak because I feel like anything that makes up like the bookish community, I feel like mostly happens in the autumn time, meaning Twilight rewatches, Gilmore Girls rewatches, pumpkin patches, little coffee shops, bookstores. I just feel like everything about being bookish happens in the autumn, at least for me. So I just love fall and I love watching videos like this where people talk about their fall recommendations but also what they're reading this autumn. So I'm really excited. This year's actually been probably my best year for reading that I've ever had so far, so I'm really hopeful for this autumn. I'm really hoping that I will get in a lot of the books that I've been wanting to read for a really long time this year. So I wanted to give first my recommendations, some of my favorite books that I've ever read in the autumn time and books that I've read recently that I wish I would have read in autumn time as my recommendations. And I actually have that stack right here with me. I haven't gotten out my fall TBR yet, but I'm gonna bring it out at the end of this video to show you guys. I feel like having just two ginormous stacks of books right here is gonna overwhelm me, so I'm just gonna do one at a time. But we're gonna start with the books that I recommend you guys read this fall or put on your TBR, or if it is on your physical TBR, if you own it, to read it in the fall. I think I'm gonna separate this by genre, so I'm gonna start with lit fics. I'm gonna start with the book that I actually don't have with me right now, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. If you somehow haven't heard of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, it follows Addie LaRue, who lives in the 1600s in France. She is being forced into a marriage that she doesn't want to be in, so she prays to a god that only answers at night, which she knows she's not supposed to do, but she's desperate. He allows her to get out of this marriage and helps her out of this marriage, but he curses her with a life of living forever and having nobody remember her. So it just follows her journey through that. This doesn't just take place in the fall, although it goes across all different times of the year, all different places around the world that she exists in this long lifespan. But I think something about it feels so cozy, but also so real and so raw and so human. But also for some reason, like in the fall, I feel like I get so introspective in the fall, reading about things that just like make me love being alive and love being a human. I know that that sounds so dramatic, but it's literally how I feel when I read that book. I feel like something about it just feels so right for autumn time. It does kind of fall in that category of being like a fantasy plus a lit fic, and fantasy is just always welcome in the autumn time. Next up is a book I actually read it's September. I read it in July, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. If you're looking for a book to get into Sally Rooney, I would highly recommend Normal People. There's a show about it on Hulu. This follows Marianne and Connell and really just feels like a coming of age story. The reason I recommend this in autumn time is because it's just so emotional and it's, again, very raw, very real. This book that feels so moody, and moody books just feel like fall to me. I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. I just feel like this would be perfect for fall time if I had to pick a season to put it in. And when I read it in July, I was like, I feel like this would be a little bit more of a fall book. I think I gave this like 4 stars. Last up in the category for lit fics is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I like to describe it as an Alice in Wonderland retelling, pretty much as a love letter to people who love books and stories. This book is not for everybody. I would just look up kind of the description of this book because that's pretty much as far as I can describe it. It's so beautifully written. It's so poetic and lyrical. To me, it just, again, feels very cozy and very magical and whimsical. And I feel like it'd be perfect for the fall time. I really do love this story and I highly recommend it to anybody. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Next up, I have 3 or 4. Fantasy is absolutely perfect for fall time, and these are the ones that I recommend. Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is one of my new favorite duologies of all time. I read this in January, wish I read it in fall. I describe it to people as like similar vibes to Throne of Glass, but stakes are like way lower. The first book is very character driven. The second book is very plot driven. I recommend this book all the freaking time. If you're on my channel, you know. I love this duology. Mary E. Pearson's writing is so good. It's enemies to lovers. The tension is through the freaking roof. Like, it's so good. I would say this probably does fall into the romantasy category, so if those are things that you enjoy, I would definitely recommend Dance of Thieves. Again, if you are on my page at all, I recommend this all the freaking time, and it is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is currently the only series from Rebecca Ross I've ever read, but I just love her writing so much. I got my first tattoo of an iris flower literally because I read this series. This is the Letters of Enchantment duology. It follows Roman and Iris, who are journalists during this war between gods. They're both interning and trying for the same role at this newspaper, and Iris has a magical typewriter that she writes letters to, puts them under the wardrobe, and they disappear. And she thinks they're going to her brother who is currently in the war, but they're actually going to Roman, who has the matching typewriter. It is just so whimsical, so magical, so pure in the love that is shown in this series. I adore it with my entire heart, and I just think that fall would be a perfect time to read this because, again, I read it in the fall and I think that that contributes to it, but it's just so cozy. I feel like obviously there are some high stakes, but like overall it just feels very cozy and warm. Last in this category, but certainly not least in the slightest, this is actually probably my biggest recommendation of this whole video, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this. I'm sorry to be a broken record if you've heard people recommend this already, but One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Guys, if you take no other recommendations from me, please let it be this. I read this in March, and the whole time I was reading this duology, one of my favorites of all time now, mind you, I was like kicking myself because I wasn't reading this in the fall. This is the perfect fall read. It's a romantasy. It's a gothic romantasy, so the whole vibe feels very, very moody. The magic system is so incredibly unique. In this world, the magic all exists in cards, so kind of like a stack of cards. Is that what it's called? Deck of cards. Each person who has a card has the magic of that card. Some are more rare than others, some are more common, and she touches a nightmare card whenever she's very young and ends up having basically a monster in her head, and so it just follows her journey. This is like one of my favorite series literally of all time, and again, if I was gonna pick a perfect time to read it, it would be October. Like, I'm probably gonna do a reread of this in October just because I feel like the vibes would be absolutely immaculate. The last couple books on here are all kind of in separate genres, kind of, a little bit. So the first one is the only romance on this recommendation video, and I read this, I think maybe February, and it is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Now, this is not for everybody. Check the content warnings. I don't know. I know that a lot of people that watch my videos only read YA, but this does have spice in it, so if that's something that you enjoy, here you go. If it's not, check the content warnings. Ali Hazelwood can be a little bit crazy sometimes, but this book was so much fun. It basically just feels like a rom-com Twilight. So much fun. I think I gave it 4.5, and honestly, if I read it again now, I'd probably give it 5 stars. This would be absolutely perfection for fall. It's like spooky, but it also has those rom-com elements that everybody loves. If you like romance, love it. Highly recommend. The only thriller I have pretty much ever really enjoyed is The Silent Patient, and I think that thrillers are absolutely perfect for fall. I wish I could get into more thrillers. I feel like I just don't always enjoy thrillers because to me, a lot of times they lack the writing that I really like in books because they're so focused on the plot. But The Silent Patient is phenomenally written. It also has the craziest plot twist I've ever read, and I also can guess plot twists I feel like pretty easily, but I did not guess this one at all. So take that as you will. This follows a psychologist finds out about a case of a woman who supposedly murdered her husband, hasn't spoken since the murder. The psychologist becomes kind of obsessed with this case, and he ends up going to the psych ward to work personally with her and like kind of figure her out, because I guess he thinks that he's going to be able to figure her out. So that is the story. It's so interesting. Plot twist is crazy. The writing's amazing. I absolutely adored it. Again, the only thriller that I've ever thoroughly enjoyed. I think they gave this like a 4.75, and I highly recommend this. I wish I could give you guys more thrillers. I just don't read thrillers enough, and I feel like every thriller I've read other than this one, I've just been like, it was okay. Last but not least, this may seem kind of basic. I just want to throw this in here, the Harry Potter series. If you've never read it, I feel like fall is literally the perfect time to either do a first time read or a reread. There are some problematic things with this author, J.K. Rowling. She has definitely come out to be pretty problematic, so I feel like it's pretty easy to get these secondhand if you want to read Harry Potter. I literally have found books every single time I go to Goodwill. I always find Harry Potter books, so I would highly recommend getting them secondhand. This is a story that just feels so cozy and so nostalgic, and it's just so much fun to read and then watch if you've never read or watched them before. Again, I feel like most people have, but just throwing that out there, if you've never, it would be a perfect time to do in the fall. I feel like fall is Harry Potter reread, rewatch, same as Twilight. I could include Twilight, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like people are gonna make fun of me for that, but I love Twilight. Every single fall I do like at least a rewatch. I'm thinking about doing a reread soon. So that is all from my fall recommendations. I'm gonna go get my books that I'm going to be reading this fall. I'm gonna put these back while I'm at it so I can do it while I'm thinking about it. Okay guys, there are so many books on this list, and there's so many that aren't even on this list, so I'm gonna try to go through these a little bit quickly. I feel like with TBRs it's like a little bit less explaining and more just kind of like showing you guys what I'm planning on doing. Let's see, where do I even start? I'm just gonna go like in order of like how I'm hoping to read these, like the order that I'm hoping to go in. So a lot of you guys know, if you watched my last video with my friend JC, we did a 24-hour readathon, and so I was kind of explaining a little bit of what I was reading during that. But I started reading the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver, and that's not a part of this video. I just wanted to say that like I was planning on getting straight into my fantasy the second September 1st started, but Elsie Silver has me down so bad. I never thought that I'd be so obsessed with a cowboy romance, but I am so obsessed. So I'm currently on Powerless right now. I don't think I'm going to continue the rest right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to wait until like next year to read the rest of them and get into my fall TBR, but honestly, like, who knows, because I am down so bad for that series. I'm so obsessed with it, and I'm trying to just go based off of like what I enjoy reading at the moment. But whenever I finally do get off of that dang series, I'm going to read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a cozy sapphic fantasy. It follows Viv, who fought in wars and now she's ready to not fight anymore, and she wants to just have like a cozy life, so she ends up working as a barista. I think that this is such a funny and fun concept for a fantasy book, and I thought that it'd be the perfect way to start into fall reading, just like with a fantasy but not anything like too high stakes or too intense. So this next one I have an idea for a video on, just because I want to have an excuse to read all these books. I want to do a Dark Academia like reading vlog for a week, because I've been wanting to read all these books for so freaking long, and I just want a reason to get into these. So let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in. But I have a couple here. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, I've heard the best things about. Every single time I get onto Pinterest, I see quotes from this book. They all are just so profound and life-changing. I am really excited to read this book. I'm also a little bit nervous because I know what type of a book this is, and I definitely have to use 100% of my brain power when I'm reading this. Next up is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I want to read so many books by R.F. Kuang. She also writes The Poppy War, Yellowface, and so I have so many that I want to read by her, but this one is apparently one of her best books, and I think that this is a fantasy Dark Academia, I'm pretty sure. Next is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. Again, heard the best things about this. I think that this is maybe like a year old. I think it came out last year, but this is definitely Dark Academia mixed with fantasy, I believe. Another Dark Academia fantasy, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I am so excited to read this because I love Leigh Bardugo's writing, and I want to get into a lot more of her books other than Six of Crows. I wanted to read this anyways just because I love her so much, but then I read the back of this one and I was obsessed. And I think I'm gonna do all those as like a reading Dark Academia for a week video. Maybe not a week, maybe like 2 weeks, because this is a lot of 100% brain power books. So we'll see if I do it in a week or a little bit longer. So those are the books I'm hoping to read in September. In October, I really want to read A River Enchanted and Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This is, I think she wrote this before Divine Rivals, and apparently everybody says this is her better series, which I have no clue how. I love Divine Rivals, and so I can't even fathom how anything's better than that, but I'm really excited to read this one. I think it's Celtic fantasy, I'm pretty sure, and I think it's a romantasy. I have 2 witchy books. A Discovery of Witches. I've heard the best things about this book. I don't know how, I've never read this book before, but this definitely just feels like an October book. I want to read more spooky things in October. This definitely just feels like it hits all the right points. And then another spooky book that I was recommended by my friend JC, who came to visit me, was The Wicked Deep. I don't know a lot about this book. All I know is it's paranormal and it's about witches, so I'll let you guys know how it is. But those are like the 2 kind of more spooky books that I wanted to include in this month. So then, these are all books that I actually don't have, but my family and I are going to Europe in the end of October, which I'm literally so freaking excited for. But obviously I had to romanticize all the reads that I'm doing on that trip. So I have a couple. I want to read The Song of Achilles, because I guess I just want to cry while I'm there. We're going to be in Greece, so that's why I wanted to read that. And I also wanted to read The Games Gods Play. I think that this just came out September, I want to say like September 6th. One of my friends on Book Talk was raving about this book. I think it's a romantasy. It's like a Greek mythology romantasy, and I just think that that would be so fun to read in Greece, so I'm really excited to get to that. And then the last one that I have, also I guess I just want to cry, but it's Call Me By Your Name, and I want to read that in Italy. If you guys have any other like Italian based stories to read, let me know. I was gonna read One Italian Summer, but it's a summer book, so I don't feel like it really fits the vibe. So if you have any other like Italian lore fantasy books, I don't know, I feel like anything that has to do with Italy, let me know. I just want it to like fit the vibe, if that makes sense. And then the last book that I have on this list is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is just the only one that I had, but in kind of like the fall going into winter, I want to read all of Mistborn, all of the Stormlight Archives, like just really getting into Brandon Sanderson, because I've never really read a lot by him. I've only read Trust of the Emerald Sea, so I really just want to like full force dive into Brandon Sanderson. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys got some good recs from it. Let me know what you plan on reading this autumn, and also go ahead and subscribe. I'm gonna be posting so many autumn related videos. I feel like, again, I just get my inspiration sparked whenever it comes to autumn. I just get like a new wave of creativity, and I hope that you guys have an amazing week. Bye.